1. Stop dimming your light. How many times have you felt like you're too much for this world? Too sensitive, too deep, too intense, too bold, too different. And so you started shrinking, speaking softer, smiling less, pretending not to know, dimming your radiance so that others wouldn't feel uncomfortable around you. But let me tell you something. Light was never meant to be contained. It was meant to shine in a world where most people are used to living in shades of gray. The presence of someone who's bold, honest, and unapologetically themselves can make others feel uneasy. But their discomfort doesn't mean you're wrong. It simply means you're reflecting something they're not ready to see. I used to hide my light too. I used to think, let me stay quiet so I don't draw attention. But the more I hid, the more lost I felt. Because light doesn't disappear. It just withers when it's unlived. And at some point, you'll have to decide. Will you keep shrinking so others feel comfortable? Or will you rise in your full radiance? Even if not everyone gets it, true light doesn't ask for permission. It just is. And you'd be surprised to discover that when you stop trying so hard and just be honest with your energy, people start gravitating toward you. Not because you're trying, but because you're real. You don't need anyone's approval to shine. You just need to stop apologizing for your presence. So if today you find yourself shrinking just to fit into a room, remember, you weren't born to fit in. You were born to change the temperature of the room with the light only you carry. 2. Don't follow the crowd. Be unshakably true to yourself. There will be times when blending in feels easier. Times when everyone else seems to think the same, move the same, post the same, speak the same. And in those moments, the pressure to conform is subtle but heavy, like a quiet fog pulling at your clarity. But the truth is, your power was never meant to be found in agreement. It lives in your honesty, in your bold, unfiltered alignment with what you know deep down to be true. Fitting in is comfortable until it starts to cost you your soul, until you realize that you've edited yourself one too many times, lowered your voice one too often, and smiled at things that never felt right in your gut. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to fit in is the moment people start noticing you. Why? Because truth has a frequency. It cuts through noise. It resonates deeper than perfection ever could. And when someone dares to live with that kind of honesty, they become a mirror. Not everyone will like that mirror. Some will look away. Some will feel exposed. But others? They'll see themselves for the first time. I've learned this the hard way. There were times I stood in rooms where I knew I didn't belong. But I stayed because being accepted felt safer than being real. But the longer I stayed, the more I disappeared, until I chose something different. To stop performing. To stop apologizing for my truth. To let silence replace small talk. And authenticity replace approval. When you stop following the crowd, you don't become arrogant. You become anchored. Rooted in something so much deeper than trends, applause, or likes. And that kind of presence, it doesn't chase attention. It magnetizes it without even trying. So if you feel out of place, good. If you feel like the odd one out, perfect. That just means you're waking up. And the world needs more of you, not a copy of everyone else. 3. Read the room before it breaks you. Not everything people say is what they truly mean. And not every space you walk into is neutral. Words can lie, but energy never does. Some of us were born with a gift. Not to impress, not to entertain, but to feel, to sense the tension behind a smile, to hear the silence behind the laughter, to walk into a room and immediately feel what no one dares to say out loud. That gift is called intuition. And if you've ever been told you're too sensitive, too intense, too emotional, take it as confirmation. You feel what others run from. But here's the thing they never told you. If you don't learn how to read the room and protect your energy, that room will eventually break you. Because empaths, the deep feelers, the silent watchers, the truth readers, often absorb more than they realize. Not just feelings, but confusion. Not just words, but wounds. I've walked into spaces that looked calm on the surface, but felt like a storm underneath. I stayed too long in conversations where everything seemed polite, but my chest tightened and I couldn't breathe. At first, I thought something was wrong with me. Now I know it was my gift activating. It was my body whispering. Something here is off. Protect your frequency. The ability to read a room isn't just about social cues. It's about energetic survival. It's about walking through life with spiritual intelligence, knowing when to open, when to pull back, and when to leave without a word. And here's the paradox. When you feel that deeply, you also reflect others back to themselves. And that can be terrifying for them. Because when someone sees you, it's intimate. But when someone feels seen by you, it's raw. You become a mirror they didn't ask for and can't look away from. That's the strange power of true empathy. People don't always understand why they're drawn to you, but they can't ignore it. You see what's unspoken. You hear what's hidden. You feel what's underneath. And that makes your presence unforgettable. So don't let the world tell you you're too much. You're not too much. You're just tuned in to what matters, to what's real, to what's invisible but true. Read the room, trust your gut, and never apologize for seeing what others can't handle being seen. 4. Stop explaining yourself. Let your energy speak first. There comes a point in your journey where words no longer serve you the way they used to. Not because you can't explain yourself, but because you no longer need to. When your energy is clear, you don't have to justify your boundaries. You don't have to over-explain your silence, your choices, or your distance. Because the people who are truly aligned with you feel it, and the ones who don't, no amount of explaining will ever make them understand. We've been taught to make people comfortable, to soften the truth, to dilute our clarity, to make sure we seem nice, fair, or reasonable. But what if your power doesn't lie in how well you explain yourself, but in how deeply you trust your own energy to do the talking? I used to think that silence created confusion. Now I know. Silence reveals alignment. It reveals who respects your presence and who only reacts to your words. When you stop explaining yourself, you create a new type of presence. Rooted, calm, undeniable. You stop leaking energy into arguments that go nowhere. You stop editing your truth to fit someone else's comfort zone. You stop seeking approval for being who you already are. And here's something no one teaches. Sometimes your silence is the loudest boundary you'll ever set. Sometimes your no doesn't need to be said, it just needs to be felt. You begin to define your energy not by reaction, but by direction. You walk with purpose, not performance. You live like your soul doesn't need to be explained, because it doesn't. People who thrive on control, manipulation, or insecurity will always ask you to explain yourself. Why you said that? Why you chose that? Why you're pulling away? But the more you grow, the more you realize you are not here to convince. You are here to exist, fully, truly, unapologetically. So, let your clarity be your language. Let your presence be your statement. Let your silence be your line in the sand. The most powerful people I know don't talk much about what they are. They simply are. 5. Don't fake the glow. Real light comes from real depth. There's a kind of glow that can't be bought, taught, or staged. It doesn't come from crystals, mantras, filters, or flawless routines. It comes from the fire, for what you've walked through and survived. Real light is earned. It's not decoration. It's transformation. There's a difference between looking radiant and actually being radiant. And deep down, people can feel the difference. Because your glow is not in your smile, it's in your scars. I've seen people with the perfect life, spiritually polished, outwardly calm, quoting the right things. But their energy didn't move me, because nothing in them had cracked open yet. And I've seen people with shaky voices, tearful eyes, and trembling hands, who lit up a room just by walking in, because they were real, because they had broken and rebuilt, fallen and forgiven, not just others, but themselves. That kind of glow, it doesn't demand attention. It draws it quietly, magnetically. It comes from the grief they've faced alone, the nights they chose to stay instead of run, the shame they turned into softness, the anger they turned into boundaries, the heartbreak they turned into compassion. So don't envy someone's light without asking where it came from. And don't ever force a shine you haven't yet grown into. You don't need to fake anything. Because even now, exactly where you are, the roots of your glow are growing. if you've been through darkness and still have light in your eyes, you are not behind. You are becoming the kind of beautiful that no one can copy. And that is the rarest light in this world. So let others chase aesthetics. Let them brand their peace, package their wisdom. But you're building light the ancient way. By healing, by burning, by remembering who you are beneath it all. And one day when someone asks, how do you glow like that? You'll just smile and say, I earned it. 6. Heal without words. The power of presence. Some people speak healing into the world without saying a single word. They don't preach. They don't push. They don't try to fix you. They simply are. Their presence alone feels like a warm fire in the cold. You sit near them, and somehow your heart starts to thaw. True healing doesn't always look like advice, solutions, or mantras. Sometimes it's just being seen, without judgment, being felt, without being explained. That kind of space is rare. And when someone holds it, you can feel your nervous system relax. Your defenses soften. Suddenly, you don't have to perform. You just get to be. I've learned this over time, that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone in pain is not talk them out of it, but simply sit beside them and let them know they're not alone. Your energy, not your words, does the healing. The calm you carry, the silence you're not afraid of, the peace you had to fight to earn. People feel that, even if they don't understand why they feel safe around you. They do, because your energy says, you don't have to hide here. You are already enough. You're allowed to exhale now. Some of the deepest healing happens in moments like that. A hand held, a silent gaze, a breath shared, a presence that doesn't shrink when things get raw. So if you've been through the fire and you carry your peace quietly, please know this. You're someone's healing space. You're a sanctuary wrapped in skin. You don't need the right words. You just need to show up, fully yourself. Because when you are real, you make it safe for others to be real too. 7. Quit competing, build the path no one else can walk. There's a game everyone seems to be playing. Chasing status, numbers, titles, likes, validation. It's loud. It's fast. It's exhausting. But what if the real power isn't in winning that game, but in stepping out of it completely? You were never meant to compete. You were meant to create, not to be better than anyone, but to be more deeply, more wildly, more beautifully yourself. When you stop measuring your worth against others, something incredible happens. Your gifts start to speak louder than your ego. You realize there is no competition in authenticity. No one can copy your frequency. No one can outrun your alignment. I've learned this truth the hard way. The moment you try to prove yourself, you shrink. You trade your inner knowing for outside approval. You abandon your path to walk someone else's. But when you stop comparing, when you stop playing their game, you rise, not above them, but beyond them, because you're no longer in the arena. You're building a whole new world they haven't even imagined yet. The most powerful people I know don't compete. They create quietly, with joy, with soul, with vision. They're not trying to outperform. They're trying to embody. They don't chase attention. They follow their inner blueprint. And that kind of originality, it's unshakable. So if you feel behind, if you feel different, if you feel like you're not winning in a world that worships speed and spotlight, good. Maybe you weren't born to race. Maybe you were born to build the road no one else can see yet. Let others play the game. Let them fight for the crown. You're here to plant kingdoms. Not just win, but rewrite the whole script. 8. Don't be shallow. Depth is your power. Surface level has never been your home. You've always felt things a little more, a little deeper, a little longer than others thought was reasonable. You walk into a room, and while most people notice the clothes, the smiles, the social signals, you see the tension in their shoulders, the fatigue behind their eyes, the questions no one's saying out loud. That's not weakness. That's depth. And it's your greatest power. In a world obsessed with appearances, with speed, quick fixes, instant success, and curated masks, your depth disrupts. It makes people uncomfortable because your presence reflects something they've been trying to avoid. Themselves. Your eyes ask questions that words never touch. Your silence reveals truths others work hard to bury. Your very existence can feel like a mirror to those still hiding from their own reflection. Not because you judge, but because you don't stay on the surface. You feel what they've pushed down. You see what they've trained themselves to ignore. And that kind of presence, it shakes things up, sometimes gently, sometimes not. Don't apologize for that. You're not too intense. You're not too deep. You're just not willing to play shallow when your soul knows better. The world doesn't need more polished personalities. It needs more people who are real, who aren't afraid to sit in silence, ask hard questions, or simply hold space for what's actually there. Depth isn't about being dark. It's about being honest. It's about being able to meet someone where they really are, not where it's comfortable. So if you feel like you don't fit in, if your energy tends to stir things you didn't ask to stir, trust that. You weren't born to float on the surface. You were made to go deep, to reflect, to remember, to wake others up, not by force, but simply by existing. 9. Reconnect or stay lost, remembering the rhythm of the universe. Sometimes the loudest kind of pain is disconnection from nature, from source, from self. Not the dramatic kind, not the kind that screams, but the quiet ache, the one that says, I've forgotten something sacred and I don't know what. And here's the secret most people miss. It's not more doing that heals you. It's more being. Not more noise, but more stillness. Not more chasing, but more remembering. When was the last time you sat with the moon and didn't speak? Or placed your bare feet on the earth and just listened? The wind carries answers. The stars hold stories. The trees are older than your pain, and still they stand. This isn't poetry. This is your medicine. We live in a world that rewards the disconnected, the rushed, the numb, the always on. But the soul doesn't operate at Wi-Fi speed. It moves like water, like breath, like galaxies turning slowly in the dark. If you don't slow down to match its rhythm, you will feel lost, no matter how much you accomplish. Your sensitivity isn't a flaw. It's your compass. And silence isn't emptiness. It's a doorway. The more you reconnect to what is natural, sky, breath, space, intuition, the more your truth begins to return. Without effort, without pressure. This is why some people carry a strange peace, an energy you can't name. It's not charisma. It's not charm. It's something ancient, because they've remembered the one thing that changes everything. You are not apart from the universe. You are it. Reconnect or stay lost. It's not a punishment. It's an invitation to return to your frequency, to remember your place in the living, breathing song of everything. 10. Don't break under pressure. How many times have you felt like the weight of the world is pressing down on you? Too much to carry, too heavy to hold, too relentless to fight, too suffocating to breathe. And in those moments, you may have wanted to break, to fall apart, to give in to the pressure, thinking it's easier than standing strong, to let the world crush your spirit so you can finally rest. But let me remind you of something. True strength isn't found in the absence of pressure, but in the way you rise beneath it. Pressure isn't meant to break you. It's meant to shape you. It's meant to show you just how unbreakable you really are. Because when you stay strong, when you refuse to break, you become untouchable. In a world where many crumble under pressure, your resilience will stand out. Your ability to keep going, to hold your ground, even when everything around you is falling apart. That's what makes you extraordinary. And here's what happens when you stay strong. The same people who once doubted you, who questioned your strength, who thought you couldn't handle it, they'll come to you, not to tear you down, but to draw from your power. They'll seek you out, not because you've never struggled, but because you've learned how to stand tall through the storm. You don't have to prove your strength. You just have to keep standing. So if today you feel like the pressure is too much to bear, remember, you were never meant to break. You were meant to rise. And in doing so, you'll become the beacon of strength that others will turn to for guidance. 11. Stop seeking revenge. How many times have you felt the burning desire to make things right? To seek justice? To pay back the wrongs that were done to you? To prove that what they did will not go unpunished? In those moments, it feels like revenge is the answer. It feels like you need to strike back, to show your strength, to make sure they understand the pain they caused. But let me ask you this. What if forgiveness is the true strength? Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's not about letting them off the hook. It's about freeing yourself from the chains that bind you to your past. It's about releasing the hold that resentment has over your soul and stepping into a higher frequency of peace. You don't forgive because they deserve it. You forgive because you deserve freedom. You deserve peace, clarity, and a life unburdened by anger and hatred. Revenge keeps you tied to the past. It keeps you stuck in a cycle of pain that never ends. But when you forgive, you choose to evolve. You choose to rise above the smallness of retaliation and embrace the vastness of your own inner power. Forgiveness is not for them. It's for you. It's for your soul to heal, for your energy to flow freely again, for you to step into the higher version of yourself. So when the urge for revenge arises, ask yourself, do you want to stay trapped in the cycle of hurt, or do you want to set yourself free and transcend the pain? Because when you choose forgiveness, you don't just let go of the past. You unlock the door to your future. 12. Choose purpose over popularity. How many times have you felt the pressure to fit in, to be liked, to chase after popularity, thinking it's the key to happiness and success, to follow the crowd because it feels like that's where you're supposed to be? But let me ask you this. What if, instead of chasing approval, you began chasing something far more powerful? What if you chose purpose over popularity? In a world that's obsessed with likes, followers, and status, it's easy to get caught up in the need to be seen, to be validated, to be admired. But let me remind you, your true power doesn't come from being liked by everyone. It comes from being true to your purpose. When you live according to your mission, you stop seeking attention. You stop searching for validation outside yourself. Because your purpose is already so magnetic that those who resonate with it will naturally find their way to you. You don't have to try to be seen. You just have to be who you were always meant to be. When you focus on your purpose, the right people, the right opportunities, and the right energy begin to flow toward you. You will no longer have to chase after anything, because what is meant for you will always find its way to you. True fulfillment comes not from the applause of the crowd, but from the peace of knowing you're living your truth, doing what you're meant to do. And when you are aligned with your purpose, the world will notice, not because you're trying, but because your light will shine so brightly, it's impossible to ignore. So the next time you feel the pull to fit in, to chase the crowd, remember, you weren't born to be popular. You were born to make an impact. And when you choose purpose over popularity, you'll find that the world will come to you, seeking the light you've always carried.